What's going on, everyone? DSP here, and special guest today. With me here is John Rambo.
Yes.
And welcome to the Hateful Truth video game review series. Today we are going to talk about an extremely unique game. A game that is really probably the first game to attempt to do what it tries to do. And it's kind of hit or miss. So what we're going to do is talk a little bit about the game, explain to you what the premise of the game is, the control scheme, and then what we thought about the game personally, and then finally give it a review score. The game we are talking about today is Rise of Nightmares.
Nice purple box.
For the Microsoft Kinect,
yes.
And it is, all the Kinect-specific games have these purple boxes. So they
probably not the best
out.
idea. They're trying to make the Kinect games for core audiences.
Right.
Then they make it purple. It's probably the last color that
I guess it's a good point.
Core gamer wants to buy.
So, as John said, what Rise of Nightmares is attempting to do, okay, ever since the Kinect, and even the Wii, you know, all these motion control gimmicks that have been coming out over the past few years, everyone's been basically saying, listen, it's for kiddie stuff. It's for a side game you're going to play for an hour, you're never going to play it again.
Casual, 10-minute at a time.
It's not for the hardcore gamer at all. You know, that's been the vein of argument. And so what Sega attempted to do with Rise of Nightmares was make a game that would appeal to the more hardcore gamer audience. Obviously the adult-oriented audience, because this is a mature-rated game. It is very gory, actually has foul language and things in it. And
yeah, all kinds of curses. They don't show them on the screen.
They don't show them right in the subtitles.
They do say things.
They do say things.
They're filthy.
So, it really is the first game. And now keep in mind, a couple others have come out since we started playing this one, including the Gunstringer. But this was the first game that attempted to be a hardcore gamer's game for the Microsoft Kinect. And so, we'll talk a little bit about that. But the premise of the game is that you are Joshua. You're on a train with your wife.
You already got more out of this than me.
Well, I don't know because we just beat it. That's the reason.
Yeah, I don't even retain any of this information.
For whatever reason, you're on a train to like some Romanian country with your wife Kate, and all these other interesting characters are also on the train. And all of a sudden, the train derails, and your wife gets kidnapped by some hideous monster. You don't know what the hell's going on.
Yeah, we call him the Dick Tracy zombie.
The Dick Tracy zombie.
A yellow trench coat.
A large, right? Because he wears this large yellow trench coat. And you end up actually surviving the train derailment. You end up stranded on this island with a bunch of the survivors from the train. And you very quickly find out that this island is pretty fucked up. There's zombies everywhere, monsters of different sorts, all kinds of crazy stuff's happening. But
all the people eventually turn into monsters.
Right, the people that you survived with you all of a sudden are being converted into monsters that you have to fight. And the premise is you're just trying to find your wife, okay? We won't give too much of the plot away because there are a couple interesting plot twists and weird shit that goes on. Just some crazy voodoo shit and stuff going on in this game. But it's your quest to find your classic Save the Princess, you know? Now, the gameplay. This is probably what we're going to talk about the most of anything about the game. The gameplay of Rise of Nightmares requires you to be standing at all times. You cannot casually sit on your couch like I have done with some Kinect games, like we did with some PS Move games. You have to be standing at all times because it tracks your feet. To walk, you either step forward or step backward with one foot to walk forward or walk backward. The combat is based off of lifting your hands up like this to get into a combat position.
Yes.
If you're holding your hands up like this, you'll block attacks. If you swing your arm like this, you'll do an upwards or downward strike. You can punch. As you find weapons, you get different abilities. So you can do sideways swipes, things like that, depending on what weapon you have.
There's crappy weapons you can throw.
Right, test tubes, I believe they were.
There's the when you hold out the drill.
That's right.
It's kind of cool.
Power drill goes right into it, or there's a chainsaw as well.
Yeah. Went
right into the guys.
There's only one point in the game where it made us run. Remember that?
The very beginning.
The very beginning. You run in place, never again in the whole game. Because it asks you to do that. It's kind of strange.
That was pretty weird.
Yeah.
And then, during combat, during certain things, they'll also ask you to avoid attacks. So maybe you'll have to duck by crouching down, sidestep by stepping left or stepping right.
You make me tired.
Backstep. So, yeah.
I got my wind back and now I'm getting tired.
Now you're getting tired?
Well, you explaining all of it again.
Oh, okay.
It's like you're living. It's a fucking gymnastics class.
See, and that's the thing with this game. Okay, it's a Kinect game. They're attempting to make it for a hardcore audience, but when you're playing this game, you quickly realize this game drains you because you're standing, you're physically moving all over the place, and even just some of the motions, like if there's a thing called an auto walk, so if you don't have to physically control your character at all times, if you're just going along a predetermined path, you can raise your arm like this, and it'll auto walk.
Do you think that was an intended game mechanic, or is it something they added on? Maybe they realized you can't possibly walk through certain parts of the game?
I think
it's so cumbersome to walk. and turn with your shoulders.
Right, that's true. You turn with your shoulders, not by turning your body, but by just turning a shoulder like this. Your character turns.
Well, if you're going into walls and shit, so maybe they added that in as kind of like a.
Yeah, I think what ended up happening was they probably created the game as it was supposed to be.
Yes.
And then they started play testing it, and some people probably said, well, this is this one part, you know. And they said, okay, let's make it a little bit easier so people don't get stuck endlessly on parts.
Right.
Just raise your hand and
plus
you'll start walking
it's so difficult to walk at times that if you got lost in a room or you didn't know where to go, you'd probably get pissed off and destroy the game.
Right, like so I just backtrack.
So it also helps you like bring you where you're supposed to be.
Right,
get you back on track.
But even that being said, just holding your hand up for a long time can give you pain. Like you said, your arm was actually
the next
sore.
day because I played for a couple hours.
Yeah.
The next morning I was like, I woke up and was like, what the fuck did I do last night? And I was like, oh yeah, I was playing this stupid game. You know.
So. For me, anyway, the controls are hit or miss. There's times in the game when I really enjoyed the controls. Like a lot of the fights, you're just hacking the shit out of a zombie like this. You have to drill like, and you're tearing them apart.
Yeah.
That stuff I thought was fun as hell. Also, there's actually later on in the game a projectile that you get where you get to like charge with your hand and push it. For the most part, I think that worked almost every time.
You don't get that till like 4 hours into the game.
Right. You're almost, you're more than halfway into the game by the time you get it. And
all the things they add,
cool.
all the mechanics that they add as you go on make the game easier and better.
Right.
But you get them so late that it's almost like, you know.
That is true. You know, later on in the game,
play through a bunch of crappy sections.
We won't spoil, but later on in the game, there's a really cool stage where you get to play as a really powerful guy. And for the first time in the game, you're like, wow, this would have been awesome if like half the game was like this, and I was able to just tear through everything. But you only get to do it for one stage, which is kind of disappointing.
Right.
But that being said, there are a lot of times when I think the controls just fail miserably in this game. I mean, like walking. Sometimes just walking, you put your foot forward, and the game will start walking backwards.
Yeah, there's times where you were just like still.
Completely still.
I look at my feet, and you're just completely centered.
And it's fucking walking. Automatically walking by itself. And the turning is horrendous.
The turning sucks.
So hard to turn. Especially when you're fighting multiple zombies, you're fighting one, you gotta turn right to fight one, you're like, oh, come on, turn. Your guy won't fucking turn, you get attacked from behind. Leads to a lot of cheap deaths.
And that's one of the places where I almost prefer the Wiimote, because you have to do the motions and stuff, but at the same time you also have access to a D-pad. And that
you have the option,
and in certain games like that really helps out.
Right. You remember when we even started, you said, oh, can't you have the controller?
Yeah, I mean,
I said, no, you can't.
If you could use the controller for certain things, maybe just like turning left and right, that would add a lot to it.
Yeah, I think so. The gameplay itself, you're going to fight a whole bunch of generic zombies in this game.
Yeah, there's only like 3 types of enemies. Really.
There's the regular zombie, which basically is just a regular zombie.
There's the Rod Stewart one with the hair, the blonde bowl cut.
the bowl cut zombie.
He's everywhere.
There are zombies that can throw projectiles.
The vomiters.
And then there are zombies with metal limbs and attachments that might have special abilities based off of those attachments. And so your goal is to hit them wherever there's meat. So if you see meat, their head is exposed, hit the head. Some of these guys actually have like robotic heads. You can't hit the head, so you have to try to swing to hit their shoulders or their body or poke their body. You have to hit them in the weak spots in order to kill them. Now, in addition to all these generic, enemies that you're going to fight, there are also boss battles. And the boss battles also can be kind of hit or miss. It all depends. Some of them require some really quick dodging, as you know from that last boss fight. It was a lot of dodging back to back to back to back. And,
we had talked about this before, but it's like the boss battles are easier than the actual game.
It is true.
Because the boss battles have like a very specific thing you're supposed to do.
And you're fighting one-on-one, too.
So you dodge where it tells you to dodge, you step backwards, and then you walk up and you slash the fuck out of them. When you're in the actual game itself, in the levels, there could be like zombie could be behind you, in front of you,
surrounding you,
and you're stuck.
You can't do anything.
You don't know where you're supposed to go, and then you get killed or vomited on and all that. So the boss battles actually made more sense and were probably the most fun part.
I was actually going to say some of the boss fights I thought were really fun.
That was the most fun for me
and interesting, And as we said, it's pretty cool that some of the characters actually you see them earlier in the game, then they transform into bosses later in the game. That's a pretty cool thing.
Yeah.
So that's really the gameplay. And speaking of how long the game is, it's 9 chapters long.
Was it like 6, 7?
And
No, 5?
Way.
5 or 6?
I mean, last time it was 21 parts. This time it was like 6 or 7 parts.
Yeah.
So you're less than 30. So you're talking less than 5 hours. It's probably about 4 hours, I would want to say, of solid gameplay.
It's pretty good for Kinect game though.
No, that's the thing though.
This is a full $60 game.
No. Kinect games are only $50. I want to say. I think it's $50 for this game.
All right.
But something has to be said here.
Yes.
John and I played this co-op, alternating back and forth between each other.
Right.
Imagine what this would have been like if you tried to play 4 hours straight of this game.
Yeah.
How sore your body would probably be, how fucking exhausting it would be.
It's funny because it keeps a calorie count
Yes.
of like how many calories you're burning. So they're making it into like a
Almost like a
workout game.
workout sports game. Like you could tell how much energy you exhumed when you played this game.
Do you think you could actually get in shape by playing this game?
Absolutely
someone
not.
Could?
No way. No.
It's like we also spoke about this privately, but like the motions that you're doing aren't like healthy motions.
Right. It's repetitive.
Shaking your arms like this over and over again, and
holding your body in place, putting one foot out like
I don't think
this
that's
for
anything
extended periods of time.
Those aren't like workouts that are good for you.
Right. Those are those could be potentially dangerous things.
I think so. Yeah.
Over and
those
over.
aren't good motions.
So the game itself, roughly 4 hours, probably. Again, if it takes you longer, if you're playing by yourself, you're probably gonna want to split it up anyway. But could take you probably more than 4 hours. Now there is a 10th chapter that is basically like a challenge mode where you just get 100 fucking zombies thrown at you, and you have to escape during a certain period of time. You can skip some zombies, but it's pretty much impossible. Like tried the first stage, the entire hallway was full of zombies. So there is a 10th challenge chapter. So once you beat the game, there is a little bit more replayability there, and it does also
unlock. You're not gonna want to play that once you get to that point.
It does unlock a harder difficulty, but again, to that point, once you've beaten this game once and kind of fucked around with the controls and suffered through it, you're probably not gonna want to play it again. It's good for one sitting, but it's probably not something you're gonna want to play multiple times.
Yeah.
I would definitely say this game is more for playing with friends, like we did. Have fun with it, joke, trade out. Don't
if you had a bunch of people
yourself.
playing and you're all watching the person be goofy and mess around, it's kind of fun,
Right, but doing it yourself, imagine trying to get through this game yourself for a 5-hour marathon. You'd be like, oh fuck, I'm still going, Now let's, I do want to talk a couple other things like the graphics. I thought the graphics were great.
The graphics are
Personally,
fun.
I thought the graphics, they were very detailed. The gore factor is there. Being able to chop off certain limbs and their bodies exploding and all kinds of stuff like that.
On the negative side, I'll just say there wasn't much variety. I think you played through the same levels.
There are some levels that are repeated.
You play as two different versions of the same character, and they kind of bring you through the same areas again.
Yep, that is true.
But the areas themselves look good, and the characters look good.
Yeah, the detail is good.
And
the graphic design is good.
There's only like 3 different types of enemies, but they look decent.
Right. Music, I really didn't even notice this. Classic.
I thought it was good. There's some organ
score. Like organs and a score. For like a horror style game, but so yeah, I have to say the graphical presentation and the musical presentation are pretty good. I can't really complain. This could have looked like a Wii game, you know what I mean? But they really did a good job, I think, of presenting it as a next generation game.
They tried with this one.
There is no multiplayer.
Mm-hmm.
There is no online play. There is nothing really after you beat that campaign besides the challenge mode. There's nothing else to do with this game. So it's a good thing it's not a $60 game, but still, even then, $50 for 4 hours to mess around with your Kinect. Some people would probably be relieved because they've had Kinect for a year and had nothing to fucking play on it. So they're probably like, yes, finally, game for me that I can actually put some time into.
Yeah, to me it should be less than that. Like, you spent the money on the Kinect, the game should be less than that.
Yeah, I mean, to that point, it's a good point.
Unless it has all the functionality like you talked about.
Right,
online,
if this were an 8-hour game, if it had online play somehow, if it had some kind of co-op, then I could understand that they're charging, $50, $60.
Yeah, the fact that you have to buy something else before in order to play that, then you have to kind of factor that in. So.
Right, really, this is not a system seller. It's not a killer app. You're not going to want to buy a Kinect just to play Rise of Nightmares. This is a game for people, to appease people who've been complaining about the Kinect for the past year because they had nothing to play on. It's pretty much what this is.
It's kind of like a stab in the dark, though. They kind of tried something, and maybe it'll lead to an improvement, or it'll just kind of fall on its face.
Right. So, Rise of Nightmares. First I'll go to you, John, defer to you, and say, on a scale of 1 to 10, based off of everything that you liked, you disliked, how would you rate this game?
The game is very, very generic. If it was just a game that you played on your pad, it would be like a 3.
That's probably
extremely generic.
The gimmick is that there is motion controls. That's what really
sells
the fact
that it has the Kinect controls adds a lot to the experience. I didn't necessarily like the game, but at the same time, there's a charm to it, and I'm kind of happy that I experienced the game like that, and I think everyone should have that experience. It's a unique experience. They tried something new.
I think a good point. If you have a Kinect, it's at least worth a rent.
If you have the Kinect, you should try it.
I'm not saying buy it, but at least try the game. I think it was an interesting attempt, Yeah,
I'll be nice. You gotta give them credit for trying something. It could lead to something that's really good down the line. But right now, I'll have to give this game a 5.89.
What the hell? A 5.89?
It's almost a 6.
Oh my god, a 5.89.
Yes. Yeah.
All right. Well, for me, I'm going to say the things that I enjoyed again, the combat, a lot of the combat I thought was fun. Some of the boss battles were really fun. I liked the graphic design. I liked the atmosphere of the game. But the fact that the game, number one, is such a control-intensive game and the controls don't really work properly a lot of the time. The fact that it is such a physically strenuous game, forcing you to stand up the entire time, I have to say that was kind of poor game design right there. Like, they should have known that someone couldn't stand up for 5 hours straight playing this game.
Yeah, well, I guess they expect you to play for like 20, because that thing comes up.
Yeah, you do. That is a good point. You get a prompt while you're playing. Gee, are you tired? You should take a break.
So they expect you to play for like 20-minute intervals, but you can't even really do that.
And that was
save points.
Doesn't that kill the immersion of the game? Like when you're playing it and you're
a survival horror.
It's a survival horror. You want to feel like you're in that position. You don't want to play for 20 minutes and then go fucking make yourself a ham sandwich in your kitchen and come back. Well, that kills the horror aspect of the game.
That's the challenge of the Kinect. How do you make a game that's very physical at the same time?
You can play it for hardcore gamers periods of time.
Yes.
So for me, just the fact that the controls don't work kind of is a massive detriment for me. Also the fact the game's only about 4 to 5 hours long. I can't recommend this as a purchase because it's too short. Right. If there was replayability, like I said, co-op, online play, then I would recommend it, but I can't. I say this is a rent, not a buy.
Yeah.
And for me, I'm going to have to give it a 5.
Okay.
Right middle of the road. It's not horrible. You can tell they put effort into the game. I don't want to discredit the people who worked on this game because I think they were tasked with an impossible task.
I'm sure the budget wasn't very much.
Right.
I'm sure they worked hard on it.
And I'm sure they were told, you have to make a good game, a hardcore gamer's
and
game for the Kinect.
They had to completely develop an engine, I'm sure, from scratch that used the motion, and this has never been done, really.
So you have to give them credit where credit's due. It is original. It is something that, is a first, again, the first hardcore gamer attempt for something for the Kinect, but I just can't forgive the fact that it's so short and the controls suck. So I give it a 5.
Yes.
Alright, so that's it for the Hateful Truth game review. Hope you enjoyed it. And we will, when we do co-op games such as
we're trying to do this more often.
Something like this, we could review the game, you know what I mean? But it has to be a co-op game, that's the thing. Like, Gears of War, we won't do co-op because I'm playing all the multiplayer by myself.
I didn't get the real experience.
You didn't get the full experience, but for games that we're doing full co-op, such as Rise of Nightmares, and there will be more coming up, by the way, later on this next coming months. Probably as soon as we beat the game, we'll review it, so that way it's fresh in our minds and we can really get both of our perspectives on it. So that's it for the Hateful Truth. Thanks a lot. See you guys next time.
Adios.